Hi guys. How is everyone? We don't have an intro because I set it up through StreamYard instead of Streamlabs, but my husband also called and had our internet reset and everything. So let's hope that everything works out nicely. And maybe it was meant to be because Harlot got to come. And A. Higgins, you just made me laugh because I was reading the comments and not laugh. I don't know if that's the right word, but oh, how about I lower my volume? You said that you don't like the cases with kids. You said you don't like cases with kids, and then you're like, so what do you guys feel about the Clancy case? I was like, oh my gosh. You're like, but since we're talking about it, how's everyone doing? Come on in, you guys. How is everyone? Here, let me undo this to make it easier. There we go. Oh, thank you. Wait, thank you, Ivy. Ivy, I saw you last night, didn't I? In another chat. Okay, hopefully this just works out. I'm assuming everybody can hear me. Oh, A. Higgins, thank you for saying that. I needed that because I had a moment earlier. I went live twice, and both times it just didn't work out. Oh my gosh, I love this. StreamYard, you can highlight jewels. I love that, you guys. But look, you could tell because it looks like I didn't fix my makeup, but that's okay. But thank you, guys. I appreciate it. All right, let's see. I'm going to share my slides. So why I do that, how's everybody doing? Hopefully everybody's doing okay. And again, hopefully this just goes smoothly. It went so not smoothly. Oh my God. It was ridiculous. So, oh, Casey, go take your important call. Hi, Heidi. Isn't today just crazy? Tomorrow's a new day, you're right. Isn't that the truth? Isn't that the truth? Okay, so let me get started since I've already I had a crazy day related to this. Oh, I look lovely. Thank you, I look a squirrel. I tried to calm down and get myself together. So we'll see what happens. The lighting's making me look like really white, but that's okay. I don't even care at this point. Let's just do this thing. So hopefully this works. Hopefully nothing gets kicked off the stage. Let's see what happens. Welcome, everybody. Come on in. Hello. Happy Friday. We all made it through the week, despite the craziness, right? But thank you, everyone, for being here. Thank you to the mods for being here. You guys are amazing. Tonight, or I don't know if you want to call it today or tonight. I guess it depends on where you're living these days. But it's, what, 7:30 or whatever where I am. So we're going to say tonight here. But earlier we lost the stream for the third time. So I don't want to make the people who were here earlier sit through the same opening word for word. And I'm not going to pretend the interruption didn't happen. It affected me a little bit. I went back and I redid some of my notes so that I wasn't just repeating myself. Oh, Ivy, that's amazing. The only thing I don't like about this one is that it doesn't make like a bling, and I like my bling sound. So I just have to make sure that I catch it. I will. Okay, but if for some reason I don't catch something, hopefully one of the mods will let me know. You guys are amazing. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, go do what you have to do. You guys, I think before I forget, I have, maybe I should save it for a little bit. I'll just bring it up, but it's the 31st, and I think I still have 5 Minds Behind True Crimes memberships I could give out. Earlier, I was like, oh, of course I forgot. And then I'm like, wait a minute. I still have today. So I don't know. Do I just do it now so I don't forget? Hopefully I won't forget. We'll see what happens. My medication should still be working. We should be all right. But I am going to pull it up so that I have it up. That way, hopefully, I see it and I don't forget. I want to wait a little bit until people come in. Just call me Heidi. Thank you so much for the jewels. Oh, there you go, you guys. Make sure you interact because I'm giving away 5 Mind Behind True Crime memberships in a little bit. And the more you interact, the greater your chance of getting one of the memberships. So how about that? So make sure you guys interact, chat, hit some hearts, all the good things. Okay, so back to what I was saying before, though. I'm not going to pretend that the interruption didn't happen. So here's my argument, you guys, and it's okay if we have different arguments. There's going to be people here. I already know some people aren't buying, the whole psychosis diagnosis. Oh, that rhymes, psychosis diagnosis. But you guys, this is just my opinion based off of my academics and experience, profession, so on and so forth. So keep that in mind. I did a ton of research for this live. So this live is heavily researched, but please, everybody do your own research to form your own judgments. I just have to say that for legal purposes. And I'm not diagnosing anybody online. I'm pointing out behavior patterns. The other thing is here, both of these women already have diagnoses. And when I say that, it's not that I can't, it's just you can't diagnose somebody that you've never met. So I make sure that I put that out there. Both of these women already have diagnoses. So I don't even have to be as careful there because they've already been diagnosed. Andrea Yates, when it comes to my argument, here's my argument. Andrea Yates shows that a mother can plan, follow steps, and know other people would stop her and still act inside a psychotic reality. In my opinion, Lindsay Clancy is not automatically Andrea Yates, but dismissing psychosis because Lindsay appeared organized is not an analysis, in my opinion. It's a conclusion that you need to look for evidence to back, and that's just my opinion. So if you're just joining us, stay with me. I'm going to show you where these cases genuinely overlap, where the comparison breakdown and what the DSM-5-TR actually says, and why the husband's forgiveness for me matters without pretending it proves a diagnosis or proves, well, I guess in the one sense it did prove not his position, but Andrea Yates was found not guilty by reason of insanity, and she'll be living her life out in a hospital setting. And I watched an interview with her husband the other night, and he was weighing in on this case. Hey, Tony. Hey, Thomas. Welcome in. Make sure everybody engages because I'm going to be giving away 5 Mind Behind True Crime memberships, and I know that they usually go to people that engage. So let's see what happens. But I watched an interview where Andrea Yates's ex, and they're both exes in both cases, where they ask him, like, what would you say to Patrick Clancy? And, he has it was a really good interview. We could eventually watch it. We'll see how things go. But I feel like there's so many similarities in these cases. But okay, so here we go. In my opinion, Lindsay Clancy's trajectory is strongly consistent with a postpartum triggered bipolar spectrum illness that may have progressed into psychosis. The strongest description, in my opinion, is this. There's a classic symptom pattern, atypical in timing, however, right? We're just going to go through it and see and again, I'm not here to change anyone's opinion. If anything, we just have a really good talk about the diagnosis and bring attention and awareness to these issues because there's so many women out there that experience these things and feel shame and guilt because their expectation is that it's going to be the happiest time of their life and da 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 da, and they're just not building that connection or having that emotional reaction or the emotion that they thought they were going to have. A lot of it's biological. So a lot of it has to do with things like hormones, neurotransmitters, stuff like that. So let's talk about it. Tonight, again, we're not going to decide whether the deaths were horrific either. That question requires no debate. Cora, Dawson, and Kaylin Clancy, and then Noah, John, Paul, Luke, and Mary Yates were children with names, personalities, relationships, and futures. The question is whether severe mental illness changed the mother's ability to understand reality, appreciate wrongfulness, or control conduct. And I want to be clear about the comparison. I'm not saying these women are identical. I'm saying that Yates gives us a documented example of something many people insist cannot happen, which is organized sequential behavior occurring inside a psychotic belief system. Okay, so let me go over here and move on to my next slide. Okay, so the discussion tonight includes, just so people know, there's a trigger warning. This does include child death, suicide, psychosis, and disturbing beliefs. I will not use graphic images. I will also not use any rare cases to stigmatize postpartum mothers, although I do, see that I am comparing Andrea Yates, but that's also a well-documented case that's already out there. Also, most people with postpartum psychosis never go on to harm anyone, so I do need to say that. And most people with psychosis are not even violent. So accuracy matters in both directions. So I don't want to minimize the emergency, and I also don't want to turn the diagnosis into a synonym for danger, right? I don't want, especially, the time of pregnancy, before, during, after, is already stressful for people. To add, the anxiety and panic that this could happen to them is not what I'm trying to do here. But it is something we need to bring awareness to. The central argument tonight is simple. A person can retain pieces of cognition and lose reality testing. So a person can complete familiar steps while the meaning of those steps have been hijacked by their own delusions. So a delusion, by definition, is just a false belief, okay? And a hallucination, if we talk about that, can be visual or auditory, all right? But a delusion is a false belief. Okay. So the existence of organization just tells us that the brain's functioning. It doesn't tell us that the brain wasn't, how the brain was interpreting the reality accuracy. So think about that, right? You can think about a time that you've been home alone and you've heard like your husband or your wife say your name or something, or you've heard them say hello, and you're like, and you like call out or whatever to them. You might have even called them and been like, "Are you home?" And they're like, "No, I'm not home." And you're like, "Oh my gosh, I'm hearing things," right? So often when this starts to happen, it's not uncommon for women to have experiences like that more often than just once in a while. But think like, oh, okay, like, maybe I'm just tired. That's another thing. You're dealing with lack of sleep, stuff like that, changes in hormones. So you're already expecting these changes. It's easy to chalk these things off. So I think bringing awareness to it is important, because postpartum depression is a lot more common than people think. It's postpartum psychosis that is not as common, okay? But it occurs. All right, so let us deal with the DSM-5 TR first, because people use the DSM like it's either the scripture or it's completely irrelevant, depending on which statement helps their argument, to be honest. Postpartum psychosis, let me be clear, is not listed in the DSM-5 TR as its own standalone disorder with one separate diagnostic code. So clinicians diagnose the underlying condition. In cases, that is often bipolar 1 disorder with psychotic features, or major depressive disorder with psychotic features. So I do think that that's important for people to understand, because if we do, or when we do hear on the stand from a mental health professional, if they're deferring to the DSM, which I defer to, you might not hear the words like postpartum psychosis. You might hear something like I said, excuse me, bipolar 1 disorder with psychotic features, or major depressive disorder with psychotic features, schizophrenia with psychotic features. So there's a few different things that it could be diagnosed depending on the person's symptoms. So for a mood episode, the DSM-5-TR can add the specifier with peripartum onset. Okay, so that is in the DSM. So you can add a specifier on a mood episode. So I think that's what's happening, or what happened with Lindsay Clancy, although we haven't gotten that part to the till the trial, so I digress. But if from what I've read, I believe they said that she has bipolar disorder, which is a mood disorder with psychotic features, and here there is a specifier, peripartum onset, when the episode begins during pregnancy or within 4 weeks after delivery, which is why, that's what I was going to say, which is why we might see it as, like I said the first time, the mood disorder with psychotic features, and not maybe mood disorder with peripartum onset. But again, we'll see what happens when the people that are going to testify on her behalf, the doctor, psychiatrist, I don't know who they're having, but I'm assuming, at least I hope, I mean, that would only make sense, that they have to have somebody come and testify to explain all of this stuff to everyone. So with that being said, where are my notes? Okay, so for mood episodes that I was just saying, so there's a 4-week window here that matters. I'm not going to hide it because it's inconvenient. Lindsay's youngest child was 8 months old. So you cannot point to an 8-month-old baby and announce in the DSM proves postpartum psychosis. It doesn't. So, and that's by the technical terms, right? However, if you could prove that these symptoms occurred earlier on, but that it just wasn't until later, because we do see she goes to the hospital, she takes medicines, so she does do these things. I also want to point out that Andrea Yates, which many of us, even people who might not think that Lindsay Clancy is guilty, most people have come to terms with the fact that Andrea Yates was insane at the time of her crime. So if that could be true, Andrea Yates, just to refresh people's memory, her son, her youngest, was 6 months old. So we're talking about a 2-month difference here. Do you know what I mean? So I think that, and I also, one thing that I didn't hear as much of that I think is so important for this whole diagnostic stuff that I hope that they bring up is, do you guys remember when Patrick was testifying, he said that during the second pregnancy that she did seek a therapist, but it didn't work out. And then it just kind of, she never followed through. And then that was it. I guess the symptoms subsided and then they reemerge. That's what's most like that's common. That helped me. Not that I really needed any help deciding what this was, but that would definitely be on the side of why, in my opinion, it does fit this postpartum psychosis, if you will. So the DSM classifies the onset of an episode. It's not an expiration date stamped on postpartum vulnerability. So remember, a lot of things are about episodes, which would be, a pattern, which is what I always look for. So those are two different claims. So the DSM gives clinicians a standardized classification rule. The broader perinatal literature often studies illness across pregnancy and the first postpartum year. But for this case, the defense needs more than the word postpartum. It needs a documented chain. So it needs symptoms beginning after childbirth, severe sleep disruption, mood changes, possible bipolar activation, progressive loss of functioning, and psychotic symptoms that belong to the same illness course. So timing objection is real, but it's not fatal if the longitudinal evidence is strong, in my opinion. So the question isn't going to be, was she 8 months postpartum? At least I hope not. The question is going to be, when did the episode begin? And what did it look like at each stage? So when did reality testing break? When did she have that break, which obviously was at the time of the incident? So this is where the DSM helps us and where it stops helping us. It helps us distinguish symptom clusters and possible underlying disorders, but it doesn't decide criminal responsibility. It doesn't tell the jury whether someone appreciated moral wrongfulness, and it doesn't allow us to diagnose a person from a headline. So we have to be careful about that too. I also want to be careful and remind people that the word insanity is not a psychological term, it's a legal term. So when we use the term insanity, that means that the person didn't know the difference between right or wrong at the time of the event. I believe in Massachusetts, the law, that it's even more favorable to someone pleading the insanity defense, and that they don't have to necessarily prove that the person knew the difference between right and wrong. From what I've understood from Court TV, from their guests that come on, is that in Massachusetts, the person can know that what they did was wrong at the time of the crime, but they weren't able to help it. And I think, I don't know, I don't, and this is my opinion, don't come for me, please, everybody be an adult, but in my opinion, I don't even, bringing this whole case, I just don't, I'm not loving the prosecutor. I don't love that this whole case is, I feel like everybody's being re-traumatized, which is what happens in cases, right? But in this case, it feels so wrong for me. Like, for me personally, it just feels wrong. Hi, Lucy. How are you? We haven't seen you in a while. Good to see you here. So good. Okay, so also intrusive thoughts, you guys, are not psychosis. So a mother can have a horrible, unwanted image, know it's irrational, hate that she has that thought, and be terrified that she had it. We call this ego dysphonic. So psychosis involves impaired reality testing, delusions. So impaired reality testing. When I say that, I'm talking about delusions, hallucinations, severe confusion, or mood episode. So distorted that the false belief feels unquestionably real. So let me say that again, the false belief, because that's what a delusion is by definition, is a false belief. When you have, or when a person, when a person in the situation has that, that inability to separate or to give in to that, what you're going to see is a delusional command. So they're not able to, they give into it, they're not able to stop themselves. That is when this can become very dangerous and it becomes a medical emergency, right? So the Clancy defense cannot win by renaming every intrusive thought as psychosis. So they can't say everything. So, every thought she had is psychotic. That's in my opinion, that wouldn't be helpful. But it has to show a progression, that it got worse over time. And I feel like they've already started doing that, even though it's not even, the defense's turn yet. I feel like, I don't know, does anybody else have I don't know, the prosecution gets under my skin, and I don't know if it's a me thing and it could be. Who knows? You guys tell me. So, and don't forget, you guys out there, if you're in chat, make sure that you are engaging, because I'm giving out 5 Minds Behind True Crime memberships in a little bit, and you're more likely to get it if you engage. At least that's what YouTube's, at least that's what it says when I read their stuff. Okay, so the Clancy defense, again, they have to show a progression. So that distinction is not a technical footnote. It's the difference between a thought that the person fears and a false reality that the person obeys. And that's the difference here, right? because one is abstract and one is concrete. One is a thought and then one becomes the reality. And that's where, we have to watch. So a frightening thought is not a confession. A delusion is not a normal belief held strongly. Here's what the DSM grounded the defense. I'm going to switch this in 1 second. Hold on, let me see where I guess I could put it over here. Okay, so the DSM, what they're going to need to do, you're not going to say she had a baby and therefore postpartum psychosis resulted. It would sound more like after delivery, a mood episode emerged, right? And then she had sleep and her functioning changed, which again, I feel like her ex-husband testified to already, and that the symptoms intensified across, the date. So across the calendar as time went on. Bipolar spectrum signs were missed or misread. I feel like they have to show that, right? And I think that it's important. I feel like the defense has already laid the groundwork for this too. If you guys had watched the trial so far, like I have been, the defense actually says something about this. He says to the doctor or to someone, he asked when he's questioning them, so they gave her, it might have even been when the ex-husband was on the stand, so they gave her SSRIs or selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor, in other words, an antidepressant, and she was bipolar. What he was saying there was that could be dangerous. So that's the thing about medications. So you should always, well, I guess there's a place for medication only, but I usually tell people, you should most likely be, if you're having medication, also doing counseling or at least at some point did counseling, and maybe this is continued for other reasons. I don't want to get into all that. My point there is that if they missed bipolar, and we have to keep in mind with bipolar disorder, many of you might already know this, but if you don't, and again, everybody could look this stuff up, approximately 10% of people with bipolar disorder will complete suicide at some point. And that is a big percentage. So we're not talking like, a 0.5%. 10% is a huge percent. So if they missed a bipolar disorder and or added medication that could create an issue for her bipolar symptoms, right? And then kept changing medications. I mean, I don't see how the prosecutor, I don't see how this isn't as clear to everybody else as it is to me. And that's just, again, my opinion. And I would love to hear what you guys think. I guess people are arguing that she was calculated and she was able to make these phone calls and she just da-da-da. But my thing is this, you guys. Oh, and that when the prosecution says that her injuries are superficial, that drives me crazy. When you see the pictures, she clearly cut herself multiple times on both wrists and her neck. And whether they were life-threatening or not, all I could picture to myself was, I don't know which one she did first, but she did both wrists and her neck. So she does one, then does the other. So the first one doesn't work. So she does it another way. That doesn't work. So then she does it through, or whatever. I don't know which order it was in. That doesn't work. But the thing is that they weren't so superficial that there wasn't blood all over the place. Like, they showed us the pictures. That was a lot of blood, in my opinion. So she cut something. But then even after that, in my opinion, she must have felt like she still wasn't succeeding at taking her own life. And in a desperate attempt to just complete that, she jumps out the window. I guess on the other side, not the other side, but like the other angle of this is that she tried to like spider crawl out the window and thought she was going to have like a smooth landing. But my thing is this. I opened my window and looked down on the second floor just to give me anything other than, I don't know, somebody's chasing me with a knife or there's a huge fire in I don't know, but I can't imagine jumping from the window. I mean, all of you look out your second story window if you have it today, and please, nobody do anything and get hurt. I'm just saying, like, look out. And it might seem like, or it might not look like a huge fall when you're looking at a picture, but when you look out the window at that fall, like, that's, I don't know. I have empathy here. That's all. So Lucy says, took less than 24 hours for Zoloft to send me into mania. Shut up, Lucy. Thank you for saying that. And cuff you, I don't know if that's what you're agreeing on, but if so, right, we have people here that could verify this. So that's huge. And that's another thing that I want to clear up real quick. So we talk about, let me just come up here real quick. So we talk about medication when it comes to mental illness. When it comes to most medications, like an SSRI, for example, that treat depression, things like that, it takes approximately 4 to 6 weeks for those pills to kick in. However, there are rare cases where people will feel it sooner, or if you're already on medication, it's like you're sidestepping, if you will. So it's it may work quicker, or it may enhance. So there's many things that could go on because the chemicals in your brain are changing, the neurotransmission is changing. But the reason that it takes approximately 4 to 6 weeks for medication to work is because it takes that long for your brain to generate new receptor sites to take in the extra serotonin. So if you need a visual or like something to visualize this, think of your neurotransmitters as gas tanks. And throughout the day, we use some of the gas. But if we sleep and we eat right and we do all the things, we take our vitamin, whatever, all the things, they usually fill back up, and we use more the next day. We do all the things, they fill back, so on and so forth. When you're feeling depressed, your gas tank, and again, I'm simplifying this very much so just to give the people that are completely, I know a lot of people just don't think in a scientific way, just like I don't think in, some other ways. But so I'm trying to just simplify it just to give people a visual. So your gas tank of serotonin, which would be the gas that makes you happy, that gas tank isn't filling back up all the way. So it like gets less and less and less. And let's say that full tank is your baseline, like that's what you're used to, or what makes you feel normal, if you will. Normal is not a great word, but not abnormal. Okay. As if you start to get depressed and you're, let's just say this gas tank isn't refilling the way that it should, taking in a selective serotonin reuptake, inhibitor, so you're inhibiting, you're reuptaking. So what you're doing is you're adding that extra serotonin, again, I'm so simplifying this, so that you can fill that gas tank again, if you will, and that'll make you feel better. The problem is it takes approximately 4 to 6 weeks to make new gas tank containers to take in the extra gas. So you could have all the gas you want. If you don't have a container to store it in, it's no good. So think of it that way. So we need about 4 to 6 weeks to build new receptor sites to take in the increased neurotransmission, or we need approximately 4 to 6 weeks to build new, what did I call them, gas tank containers to take in that extra serotonin. Hi, guys. Oh, Lucy, I thought the cuts on her throat looked deep to me, too. I couldn't believe it. Even the one on her wrist. Did you guys see the one on her wrist? It looked like when, and just for a lack of a better example, like if you're cutting meat and like chicken and it starts to, like, that's literally what it looked like to me. It looked like her skin. Did anybody else see that? I'm like, am I seeing things? I was like, is it the lighting on my TV? Because I was expecting I was expecting just completely superficial, like, scratches. And I felt like it was way more than that. You know what I mean? One on her wrist, the skin had pulled apart like an inch. So you saw it too. Oh, Harlot used to be a cutter. Oh, Harlot, that's what it is. You and Truth. I gotta watch out for you too. I'm just joking. I'm joking. No, but you used to be, oh, Harlot, I misunderstood what you just said. And when I just re-said that out loud, that was not what I meant. Oh my God. I was thinking, oh my God, Harlot, Harlot, Harlot. I'm so sorry. When you said you used to be a cutter, I was thinking like true dad, like a butcher, not realizing that you meant you used to be a cutter. I so apologize. So was I when I was younger. I definitely was too. And just so people know, when it comes to cutting, most people that cut don't cut in areas that other people would see, because the whole thing is that you're in so much mental anguish that cutting, burning, just self-harm, right? That physical self-harm is enough literally to change that thought process. It's like, I'm no longer 100% focused on this issue because the physical pain that I just put myself in by cutting, burning, whatever the case may be. Oh my God, Harlot, you need to kick me. I am so sorry. Hopefully you'll write in there that you totally forget. I can't believe I just did that. Oh my God. You got to get creative these days. Doctors won't necessarily help. Yeah, you have to. Well, isn't it sad? The throat's wounds looked like way too high for an artery. Oh, okay. J-Lo said, I've been so deep into the Nolan Wells case, I lose focus on everything else. Oh, J-Lo, that case, oh my God, that audio. In the beginning, that's terrible. Yes. So, cuff you, I think it's like a mystery cuff you still. So I think you'll like it. You should definitely look into it. I very much have been watching stuff on it. I don't know if you guys know who it is, but there's one creator, Mac Mula. Oh my God, he is so freaking funny. But he's covering this case or that case. So you should check him out. He's actually pretty funny. So heartbreaking in general. Yes. Oh my God. I totally agree. And I think it also shows how live racism, even whether, I don't know what the outcome is yet, but I did not realize that it was still so oh my God. Okay, so let's get back to Lindsay Clancy real quick. So let me get back to what I'm saying over here. The DSM, just to get back to this real quick, not bad. The DSM forces us to ask what the underlying disorder was. So was it major depression with psychotic features? Again, I think we're going to see that it was bipolar disorder, perhaps a mixed or manic episode with psychotic features. Was it a brief psychotic disorder? Was it a medication-induced condition? Or severe depression and anxiety without psychosis? Those are not interchangeable labels. They predict different courses, different medication risks, and different explanations for behavior. So bipolar spectrum illness is especially important for me because mania is not always what we see in the movies, if you will, like somebody feeling fantastic and buying a sports car. Can that happen? Sure. But that's not always what it looks like, right? It can be dysphoric, it could be agitated, sleepless, anxious, driven, irritable, and frightening. A mixed state. Oh, a mixed state, you guys, is, I just couldn't imagine when someone's in a mixed state, they're in a state of mania and depression at the same time. So it can combine energy with despair and therefore suicidality. So that combination can be far more dangerous than simple sadness because the person may both have the wish to die and the energy to do so. So, and a lot of people that take their lives with bipolar disorder, and again, literature shows about 10% of bipolar patients will take their lives, and they do so in a state of mania. So it's not done in a state of depression usually. And mixed state is when it's most dangerous, because in a state of mania, you can have episodes where, I mean, it is not uncommon for somebody with bipolar disorder to ask the doctor if they can give them something to take away the sadness, but to keep the mania, because they get so much done when they're manic. Like, that's actually not an abnormal thing to hear. However, in a mixed state, right, you're not, that's not what's happening. So you're feeling despair. But, and this is the thing. All right, so let me just say real quick. So in a state of mania, you absolutely could feel elated, all these things, right? And then in a state of depression, you're down all the way. So it's like what goes up must come down. In a mixed state, think of them as literally what it says. They're mixed. When you're in a state of depression, the depression is so low that even if you're praying to God for every moment you're awake, that he just take you type thing, anything, you're so down that you just don't have the energy to do anything. So you might have the thoughts, but the will, like the energy to follow through, just usually isn't there. It's when somebody gets in a state of mania, and it's usually an impulsive thing, like jump off the bridge at the Golden State Bridge, right? If you ever, and again, trigger warning, but there's a documentary called The Bridge, and you can watch it for free on YouTube. But I will warn you that within the first few seconds, like the first 20 seconds, somebody jumps and they show you. So, I mean, you just see them jump, but still, I want to put a trigger warning. But it's the bridge that most people complete suicide every year. I definitely just got my entire stream demonetized. Not that I make much from it, but that was dumb. You guys, make sure you hit like though, because I definitely just did that. So they're not going to put me into the algorithm the way that I would if I didn't say that. You blew 50,000 due to antidepressant-induced mania. Damn, Lucy. So, Lucy, I don't know if you read, but there's a book called, I didn't mean it like that. I meant I don't know if you enjoy reading books, but if you do, there's a book called, oh my God, it's called, oh my God. It just slipped my mind. It'll definitely come back to me because I refer it all the time. Oh my God, it'll come back to me, Lucy. But an unthinkable, oh my God, I have it upstairs. Does anybody know what book I'm talking about? It's like a huge book for bipolar disorder, and you're a big reader. I will remember the book, I promise. Actually, I'll tell you what it is right now. Hold on. I can't believe I just forgot it. Unquiet Mind. It's called An Unquiet Mind. So if you're a big reader, or you're somebody that suffers with bipolar disorder, or somebody you love suffers with bipolar disorder, you should read An Unquiet Mind. It is a phenomenal book. It's an easy read, and it does a really good job of helping people understand coming from. So the woman that wrote it is a therapist, and she has bipolar disorder. And Lucy, you'll have to let me know if you liked it. It's been a while since I actually read it. I read it more than once, but it's been a while. But it's a good one. And what you said reminded me of it. One of the things that the author talks about often is that somebody in a state of mania, you guys, might do something like, this could be the most responsible person ever, and in a state of mania might do something like blow $50,000 at the casino. And I don't know that that's what happened. I'm just giving an example. But you might blow, you might only have $100 to your name, but you blow 99 of it at the. So it's like, it's not until you come down that you look back and you're like, oh wow. So a lot of it is impulse driven. And even if you look at The Bridge, if anybody, and Lucy, you might actually like that documentary, The Bridge, because you see that that's also one of the common diagnoses. And if they don't just show that, they talk to. So what they did was It was a bunch of researchers, and they were able to get permission to film at the bridge for a year. They did not say what they were going to do a documentary on. That's how they got the permits. They said they were doing a documentary on the bridge, but they didn't say on what. They just said a documentary on the bridge, and they got the permits. A year later, they do the documentary on, and here the Golden Gate Bridge is the #1 bridge that most people will jump from in our country when they choose to do so off of a bridge. And there are people that will travel to that bridge to do that. And so what they did was they found the families of the people, and they do, like, it's literally, they made it a documentary. So you go through these people's pain. Cuff, you might actually find it interesting too. Harlot, yeah, check it out. All of you check it out. So it's called, no, it's just called The Bridge is the name of the documentary. But the bridge they're talking about is the Golden Gate Bridge. But, you know, it's just called The Bridge. And it's on YouTube. So it's a YouTube documentary. I'm sure I can find it in a minute. But hey, a wise woman, welcome in. Yeah, but it's so good. But anyway, one of the things we find there is that a few of the people also suffer from bipolar. And the good news is, you guys, and I mean, this isn't really a, you know, I'm not like giving anything away, but there's one guy from New Jersey, and he's very young, and he's in a state of mania. And this is how impulsive this is. He says, and he tells us because he lives. And so they're able to have him in the documentary speaking and telling his own story. And it very much sets the stage for how impulsive suicidality is in someone that has bipolar, that's in a state of mania. And he literally said that it was so impulsive that he looked at this woman, and in his head, he said, if she looks back at me and says hi, I won't do nothing. If she doesn't say anything, I jump. She says nothing, he jumps. It was that impulsive. He said the minute it was too late, he regretted it. How many other people do too? Do you know what I mean? So I think that talking about mental illness is just so important, especially in a context like this, when we're talking about, you know, psychosis. Again, it's very, very rare, but it can happen if you know, a small percentage of that population. So getting back to this real quick, just so that I don't have us here until midnight. What's its face? Bipolar spectrum illness is especially important because mania is not always the movie version of someone feeling fantastic and buying a sports car. It can be dysphoric. I already said that part, so we're worried about the mixed state. That combination can be far more dangerous than simple sadness. So the mixed state can be, because the person may both have the wish to die and the energy to follow through. So when you hear testimony about racing thoughts, inability to sleep, usual goal-directed behavior, emotional detachment, agitation, and or worsening after the antidepressant, and as Lucy just validated for us, and thank you guys so much for being so vulnerable in this chat. I appreciate you guys. We don't want to treat each symptom like it's, you know, an isolated question. We want to ask whether all of these symptoms together form a mood episode. Then ask whether hallucinations or delusions entered that episode. I mean, it's not that it's that simple, but that's what I think needs to be shown here. So that is the DSM's work. So the legal work comes later, right? So with Lindsay Clancy, let me get back to this. Let me add this back to the stage. So with Lindsay Clancy, okay, let's do it this way. Hold on now. Let's see if one of my kids will be some Ledalia. I doubt it, but let's see. Well, you know who will? Fiona, Ava's girlfriend. My daughter Ava's girlfriend. Can someone? All right. Okay. I know, watch you guys, Fiona will do it. Why is it always the kids girlfriend or boyfriend that does it. Why is it never the kid? Ava will act like, oh, my phone was still off from work. But Fiona will get it, I'm sure. But I guess it's the same thing if they're at Fiona's. I'm sure Ava gets it and Fiona, her phone's off type thing. I'm sure it's just how it goes. Anyway, let's see. I guarantee if Fiona comes down. All right. So now to Lindsay Clancy. The defense concedes that she caused the death of Cora, Dawson, and Kellen. The Massachusetts trial is about criminal responsibility, not identity. We even heard the defense attorney, didn't he say something like that today? The one thing he's like, this isn't, or like something about, this isn't about a state of identity. I was like, oh my God. Like, in other words, we know who she is. I don't know. I don't like how this case is going. The lawsuit documents. Okay. Are they in Discord? You know what? I actually have them up in the background of my computer. So if they're not, after this, I can send them over. You know what I mean? Not send them over, upload them to Discord. You know what I meant. Anyway, today on the 31st of July, the jurors toured the former Duxbury home, the restaurant, and the CVS connected to Patrick's trip that night. The doctors also testified about efforts to save the children. The site visit matters because the prosecution is building the physical story, so they need timing, distance, opportunity, and sequence. It is showing the jury the route Patrick traveled and the short window in which Lindsay was alone with the children. I am going to let the dog out because Fiona didn't come, and I don't want Ellie to pee herself. That would not be nice. But while I do so, I want you guys to discuss amongst yourselves. It'll only take me literally a second. But what do you guys think about them going to the house? I don't know how I felt about it. Like, do you guys think it's necessary? I'm back. I'm back. It was literally right there. It probably took less time to let the dog out than it did to text Fiona and Ava to see if one of them would help me. Watch, neither one of them had their phone on. I can hear them both upstairs laughing. Oh, so Lucy says maybe necessary to see how high the drop from the window really is. Okay, I get that. Why did they go to the restaurant and the CVS? Yes, exactly. I don't know if it was to gauge how long it took, but was there really a need to do that? I don't know. I know she wasn't thinking all that stuff at the same time, but weaning on and off meds takes time. If that time isn't taking, things get so much worse. Oh, you guys, I stand corrected. My beautiful, gorgeous child, Ava, answered the call. Yeah, what do you mean?
Let the dogs out.
What are you
Why
talking
would you text me? Dad told me to let the dogs out because you were online.
Dad told her to let the dogs out because I was on live, and she just came down to let the dogs out of the kindness. Yeah, I just texted you, but Allie just went out coming. But I literally made a bet that Fiona would answer my text, not Ava. So I'm correcting myself, and I just told her because you had work. So I'm like, Ava's going to play that her phone. But you didn't get my text, so I wasn't lying.
No, I didn't get your text.
This was osmosis, you guys. She was like,
I was like, what happened?
She used the force.
And I only knew because I accidentally yelled. And I was like, oh my God, Mom's online. I was like, oh my God, Allie has to pee.
No, she's out. She's right there. She's coming back if you can let her in. You're the best, Ava.
I'm sorry.
No, you're good. Thank you for coming down. Okay. Okay, so what I was reading here, let's see. It was a wise woman. If that time isn't taken, things get so much worse. Absolutely. So a wise woman's talking to about like how about the medications. And I don't know if any of you have been on medications before, like for any of these disorders. I don't know, and I always look for what is in the case. I get attached to certain cases, right? We all do. There's reasons why we follow certain cases. She said, at Brian Koberger, at Mackenzie Sharilla, with you guys, today's July 31st. Today's the day of the crash. So rest in peace, Dom and Davion. Rest in peace, for sure. It's July 31st. Let's have a moment of silence for Dom and Davion. Except you can hear my loud-ass kids in the background. Okay. So may God keep them with him and out of pain and everything, right? And that they may live on in spirit and through all of us, keeping them alive. So there you go. July 31st was also Harry Potter's birthday. Ooh, fun fact. I didn't know that. Oh, A. Higgins, are you still at the camp thing? I had to get them squared away so they won't be calling me every 5 minutes. I want you to get me squared away at the camp thing. That didn't sound right. You know what I meant. So let's talk about this real quick. They go to the house today. I guess I understand why they might want to go to the house. I also tried to consider, though, the fact that there's new homeowners there. I don't know if they have children. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Could you imagine, if the jury had to come to your house type thing, and I don't know. There must have been so much anxiety there. I know that they said the homeowner didn't really want that, and I guess I couldn't blame them. But nonetheless, they went. I think they said they were going to go in 6 at a time, and that everybody else would stay in the bus type thing. So, and that they weren't allowed to speak the whole time. So like they couldn't say to each other like, oh, did you see that? Or, oh, come look over here. Or, oh my God, that is further than they're not allowed to say any of the things. So I wonder how that goes. You said, yes, ma'am, it's my job. I'm Cal. Oh, I love that. Hey, Higgins, I need to come visit. No worries, Dr. V said she can put them in there. Oh yeah, I have them. Do I have something for once that Cuff You doesn't have? Lie to me, Cuff You, because that would make me feel like I actually have something for once. I'm just joking. Okay, so today, the 31st, the jurors toured the former Duxbury home. The prosecution's strongest point is not that Lindsay had no mental illness. It's that she allegedly created the opportunity. She participated in ordering dinner, asked Patrick to get medication, knew where he was going, and acted during his absence. She attended a pediatric appointment, spent time outside with the family, communicated coherently, and appeared more functional than she had at other points. Let me say this. That's serious evidence. But I'm not going to insult your intelligence by calling it meaningless. Planning, timing, and apparently normal behavior can support an inference that she understood what she was doing and knew Patrick would stop her if she didn't send him out. However, I will also say that just like I said earlier, if there's a bipolar episode occurring, and I'm not saying there was, I'm speculating, if there was, right? If there's a mixed episode, the person can feel despair and at the same time have the energy to go through with something like this. Add psychosis on top of it. So the hallucinations and or delusions, hearing, I think she said she heard a man that told her she had to follow through with it. It was her last and only chance that she'd be able to do so. So, and then for me, the fact that she tries to take her life 3 times pretty much afterwards, and again, she doesn't try to take her life 3 separate times. I mean, the cutting of the wrist, both wrists, the neck, and then jumping out the window. And now she is paralyzed from the waist down. I just don't know why somebody, risks doing all of those things if they were just trying to fake it. My other thing is, she's never said that she didn't do it, right? So even if she faked it and fell out the window type thing, not fell out, but jumped out the window, but was laying at the, let's say she didn't get paralyzed or whatever, and she was just laying there. I mean, what is she trying to get out of? Do you see what I'm saying? Like, either way, it's not like she wasn't saying she didn't do it. So, I mean, I'm just trying to think about it, and it's like, okay, so, and you could say there's plenty of people that take their family's lives, but a lot of times they'll then flee, or they'll this, or they'll that, or they'll lie about it. Like, I think of, what's her name? Oh, what's the one with the car? With the two boys? Oh, Susan Smith, right? Oh, that son of a gun. But I think about her, right? She lied and said that her car was hijacked and da 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 da, and feel bad for me. So in that case, she hid that truth. In that case, I do think she was trying to eliminate the kids, in my opinion, so she could have a different life. With Chris Watts, I think he was trying to eliminate his kids and his wife so that he could have a different life. In this case, I don't see that. I saw it as she took the kids' lives and was taking her own after. Even with Andrea Yates, I still see it in the same sense, although she doesn't try to take her own life on that day, if you will. So this is serious evidence, so I will say that again, but the strongest argument is the one that admits the other side is evidence, and that's where I stand. So I do admit that there is evidence, supporting the other side, just stating that she did this on purpose. But the defense is not asking the jury to look at one evening in isolation, so we have to remember that too. So just looking at things like she planned this that night or she did that night, for me, they're going to ask the jury to place the evening at the end of months of deterioration after Callan's birth. So anxiety, depression, profound sleep disturbances, suicidal thinking, intrusive thought patterns, multiple treatment settings, right? Medication changes, crisis care, the psychiatric hospitalization. She killed the children 19 days after being discharged from McLean Hospital. You guys, that is like, that hospital, like, that is, when I heard she went to McLean, I was like, oh wow, that's where John Nash went. A Beautiful Mind. He had, not, well, I say had because he's deceased now, but his son John Nash also has paranoid schizophrenia. But McLean is like an amazing hospital, or is supposed to be an amazing hospital from what I've always been told. So the defense says that an underlying bipolar illness was missed, and that the antidepressant treatment, medication changes, and sleep loss intensified the episode. So that mechanism is clinically plausible in a vulnerable patient, in my opinion. So, I'm not saying the pills made her do it. That's not what I'm getting at here. That's too easy, and it's not established. A credible medication argument requires dates, doses, adherence, activation symptoms, withdrawal effects, baseline illnesses, and alternative explanations. I know that there's an argument that there were many pill bottles and that she was only really on 3, although there was like 13 or something documented. This is the thing. There's a different half-life and stuff with these medications. So you might get off of one of them, but you add something else. And depending, like if you're adding something in the same class, so for example, let's say you're dropping Prozac, but you're adding Paxil. It's still an SSR. So like I need to, like, I know that you sent me a list of them, and I'm not doing pharmacology here, but I do want to look at them in greater detail to see how that may have affected things. And Lucy just told us too that it only took a day of being on an antidepressant for it to induce a manic episode. And that's literally all that needs to happen. So just because many of us, including myself, from 13 to 21, it was more like 13 to 30, but 13 to 21 is when it occurred most, where I was ADHD, but it wasn't really a big talked about thing back when I was younger, when I was 13. So it went undiagnosed. I was misdiagnosed for so many things I can't even tell you, but with the misdiagnosis came medication. So I wasn't just misdiagnosed, but I was misdiagnosed and then put on medication. And when the medication didn't work, instead of trying something else right away or whatever, I had to, max out the dosage. So I would be on like a medication. I was on lithium for a minute. And when lithium's highest dose that I could take didn't work, they took me off that and put me on, what was it? Is Remeron? Is that a mood stabilizer? There was another one too. It was a peach pill. And it was called, oh my God, Neurontin was one. I know that. Anyway, there was just so many different ones. I was on so many different mood stabilizers because I was misdiagnosed as bipolar. I was misdiagnosed with schizophrenia because I was trying to explain ADHD, and we know this to be true, that there's cultural differences in the way people speak, things like that. So depending, and there is plenty of evidence out there, this has been heavily researched, you can send two people into the doctor with the exact same symptomology, and they could be diagnosed with something completely different. As far as psychology wise. So for example, the one that we see most often in this type of research is bipolar disorder versus schizophrenia. And I think that's what happened to me. I was diagnosed with schizophrenia at one point, and thank God, for some reason, my mom knew that I wasn't hearing voices and stuff. When the doctor asked me a question, I was young, and I must have said something along the lines of like, oh yeah, yes, I definitely hear my I guess he asked if I had like a narrator type question. And I was like, and I do. So I was like, oh yeah, like I constantly like talk to and I guess the way that I expressed what I was saying, the doctor took it as I was hearing voices and da 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 da. So next thing I knew, I was diagnosed with schizophrenia, and I don't have schizophrenia. I mean, I was diagnosed with so many different things. I did have an eating disorder for many years. I clearly beat my eating disorder. I'm sorry, that's a bad joke, but I feel like I can make it because I had an eating disorder for so long and came out on the other side. And I clearly don't even identify with that whole part of my life anymore as far as like who I am now. So although you do still see things, seep out in different ways when it comes to that. Like I'll find that, if I'm anxious, I might not eat for the whole day type thing and not even realize it. My husband might be like, you didn't eat yesterday. Like, are you going to eat today? Stuff. And I'm like, oh, wait, I didn't. So it does seep out in different ways, but it's not in the way that it was back then. And it was bad. My point being is that for a few years, I was on so many different classes of psychiatric medications, and my brain wasn't completely developed yet. This was during my teenage years. So here I have a brain that's still in development. And I mean, you guys, there were times where I was on like 4 or 5 there. It was bad. And I eventually realized that a lot of the symptoms that I had were coming from side effects of medication that I didn't need. And I wonder, and I don't know, do I feel, something here for Lindsay in that sense? Because I don't want to be biased, and we tend to project as human beings, and it could very well be that I'm just projecting my own experience. So that's why I try to be open about it and reflect on it, but also because I know that this experience, although extremely rare, that it's real. And I feel like this is, other than Andrea Yates, this is the only other case to me that I've looked at this intensity. And for me, I see such a clear distinction. But again, that doesn't mean that everybody else should. You know what I mean? And I totally respect that. So, and I also have the right to change my mind just like you do. So there's that too. So the defense's most important claim is that the reported male command voice. So that's my opinion here. So her attorney says that the voice told her this was her last chance and ordered her to kill the children so she could kill herself. That is not merely just like, a bad thought. Like, oh, I just had a negative thought. If true, if that really happened, this is what we would call a psychotic command tied to a homicide structure. So there's that. Oh my gosh. Hold on, what just happened? Ivy 6767. Ivy, thank you so much. I worked so hard on this. And you guys, I'm going to be giving out 5 Mind Behind True Crime memberships, so hang in there. I won't, keep up here on doing this. This might, analytics, that believe it or not, although people are interested in psychology, people are actually more interested in the facts of the case. I'm starting to realize that with my analytics. Go figure, I come on with a different case in the psychology thing, so it's my fault if I throw my own shit off. But I felt like this case couldn't go on without, and me just be like, oh, I don't know what's going on with this case. Like, I feel like this is the right thing to do. So I feel like I have to do this even if nobody joined the live type thing. So, why am I getting emotional? Anyway, the jury has to examine when the voice was first reported, whether the account stayed consistent, whether it fits earlier records, and whether the surrounding behavior supports impaired reality testing. A voice reported after the fact is not automatically false. It is also not automatically corroborated. So we need to keep that in mind as well. Okay, so then there's the immediate side attempt. Lindsay did not kill the children and then leave to start a new life, you guys. She attempted to die and suffered permanent paralysis. That sequence can fit psychotic or so-called altruistic filicide, where the mother believes the children must accompany her, cannot survive without her, or that they're being rescued from an imagined danger. It can also reflect guilt, despair, or fear of consequences. Suicide after homicide is clinically important. It's not a diagnosis by itself. So one fact can support more than one interpretation. This is my next point that I'm going to make. This is why juries hear evidence instead of slogans. Patrick's testimony cuts both ways. He described a loving, attentive mother who deteriorated dramatically. That supports change from her baseline. He also described an apparently good day and a phone call in which she did not sound overly psychotic. That supports the prosecution. And this phase, good day, or the phrase good day, needs context. In a family living with severe illness, a good day may mean she ate, got dressed, attended an appointment, and smiled. It's not the same as remission. But if her behavior was sustained, flexible, socially appropriate, and reality-based, the prosecution can argue that the defense is mistaking distress for incapacity, right? So let me tell you what the evidence could move me toward the prosecution. And let me go further here. Here we go. All right, I changed my things so many times that they don't exactly go with each other, but I still want to display it. So it's still something you guys can read why I say my points here. So the evidence that can move me towards the prosecution, if the records show no psychotic symptoms before the deaths, no manic or mixed episode, no consistent command account, no flexible plan built around concealment, and a conventional motive such as escaping from motherhood, that would weaken the psychosis theory substantially for me. Mental illness alone is not enough. What would move me towards the defense? Contemporaneous reports of voices, paranoia, delusional guilt, severe bipolar symptoms, or loss of reality testing. A consistent account across independent interviews, clinicians documenting. That's going to be so important here. Impaired judgment, symptom changes that track medication and sleep, and expert testimony that connects those symptoms to capacity and the exact time of the acts. This is also why today's jury tour matters, but cannot answer the psychiatric questions. The route can show that Patrick was gone a certain amount of time. The rooms can show the distance and sequence. The CVS and restaurant can make the prosecution's planning theory tangible. None of those locations can tell us, though, can tell the jury what Lindsay was thinking or what she believed in her head. Physical evidence can establish the stage. It cannot by itself, though, establish a mental script. So I also want to challenge the phrase, she acted normal, real quick. So normal compared to what, right? So about a brief coherent phone call is not a full mental status examination. Taking a child to the appointment is not proof that a hallucination wasn't present. At the same time, we cannot use fluctuation as a universal escape. So if every organized act is dismissed as a lucid interval, and every disorganized act is treated as psychosis, then the theory becomes impossible to test, in my opinion. So a good defense must identify specific evidence of illness, not explain away every prosecution fact after fact. This is the standard I'm asking you guys to use. So what evidence would change your mind? If the answer is nothing, then maybe you're not evaluating the case. Maybe you're just protecting a position. And that's where I ask all of us, including myself, to reflect and keep an open mind. So my position is not that the psychosis claim is proved. My position is that the publicly reported pattern is too clinically dense to dismiss as ordinary depression plus a selfish choice. The expert testimony and contemporaneous records have to decide whether that pattern became a diagnosis and whether the diagnosis affected the legal capacity. Okay, so real quick, I want to show you guys Andrea Yates. Okay, so I showed you one where they were the same. These are some of the things that they weren't the same. But real quick, back to June 20th, 2001, Andrea Yates. She was also a former nurse, which I thought was interesting. She's the mother of Noah, John, Paul, Luke, and Mary. After Rusty left work, she drowned the children, called 911, called Rusty home, and confessed. The sequence was organized. She waited until Rusty left. She knew he would interfere, just like we hear here, too, with Lindsay and Patrick. She carried out repeated steps. She contacted the police, which Lindsay obviously didn't do, but also couldn't, in her defense, do on her own. If your argument is that organization automatically proves sanity, then Andrea Yates should have ended the discussion, right? So Andrea Yates is the case that makes the she planned it, therefore she was sane, intellectually impossible to defend as a complete argument. Her psychiatric record before the death was extensive. After Luke's birth, she experienced a severe breakdown. She had suicide attempts, hospitalization, and psychotic symptoms, but she did improve with antipsychotic treatment. A psychiatrist warned about the risk of another pregnancy. After Mary was born, an additional stressor occurred, right? Another child, there's a lot more stress and a lot more responsibility. So if we see there too that Andrea starts to deteriorate again. Her psychosis had a developed moral and religious structure as well, which we often refer to as religious insanity, if you will, or religiosity, extreme religiosity, religious delusions of, well, that could be different, but she believed she was an evil mother. She believed that Satan was influencing the children. She thought that the children were headed for hell because of her. Inside that false reality, killing them became a distorted rescue for her. So, and that's sometimes what we might see with someone who has a form of paranoid delusion. It's not, and we saw this even with The Beautiful Mind, which was based off of John Nash's story of paranoid schizophrenia, where there's a part where he winds up physically hurting his wife and son that she's holding, the baby, because he like jumps down and he thinks he's like jumping in front of a bullet for them, but instead he jumps on them and they fall over. So that's what all often happened. So here, this is definitely a lot more extreme, but there is a world in which her psychosis allowed her to perceive that she was doing something altruistic as opposed to horrific, right? So here, her psychosis had a developed moral and religious structure that we can't ignore, that we don't see necessarily with Lindsay. But this, in my opinion, is because it's also symptomology of the differences in their alleged diagnoses. I'm trying to use my words carefully. So with Andrea Yates, schizophrenia with psychotic features is going to look different a little bit than bipolar disorder or mixed state, bipolar disorder with psychotic features. But there's going to be a lot that's the same too. Anyway, we know that she killed all 5 of her children, right? We know that much. Oh, thank you, a wise woman. A wise woman gave me jewels. You're so sweet. Thank you so very much. Okay. We know she killed her 5 children. Inside the psychosis, she believed death was going to prevent something worse. That doesn't make the act loving or altruistic, if you will, but it does explain how maternal love can be reorganized by a delusion into catastrophic behavior. So the important point here is that Andrea's illness did not begin on the morning of the deaths. Her youngest was 6 months old, but the record showed earlier postpartum episodes, which I think we see here. It just was never formally diagnosed for Lindsay, but her husband even said that after the second child, she did seek help. It just didn't work out, which I am so interested in finding out why. I mean, not that that's ethically okay to even look at, but my curiosity, it isn't about, a gossipy type curiosity. I'm curious because I wonder, was it just something where she met with a therapist that, they didn't, I don't know. I want to know, what was it? Did they not vibe? Was there something? But again, we'll never know unless, of course, she waived that privilege. But there'd be no point of that in this case, I don't think, for her. So I don't know why they would ever do that. I'm just saying, in my thought process, I would love to know what that was about, because it might play a role in this documentation of catastrophic behavior that eventually occurs. So we know that Andrea Yates' first jury, that she was originally convicted in 2002, but that conviction was reversed because a prosecution expert falsely testified that a television episode existed. I remember this, about a mother who drowned her children and was found insane. This episode never existed. In 2006, a second jury wound up finding her guilty, but by reason of insanity. And she was committed to psychiatric care. I actually think it worked out in her benefit because, in my opinion, that was the true verdict. At least that's what I would have found as well. So the evidence did not become a completely different medical history between trials. So the framing, credibility of the expert testimony, and the jurors' understanding of the wrongfulness changed. That is why a verdict is a legal finding, not a psychiatric result. So the religious content also needs to be handled carefully, in my opinion. So religion did not diagnose Andrea, and religion does not cause psychosis, right, by itself. Psychosis borrows material from the person's existing world. For one person, that may be Satan and condemnation. For another, it may be surveillance, contamination, technology, a government plot, or the belief that a child's possessed. The content is culturally shaped as well, that we often see that. So the research shows that the content is often culturally shaped. The loss of reality testing is the clinical issue. So I often tell people, when you have, if somebody just comes to me with an issue and they're like, so-and-so yelled and they did this and they did that, they're usually all symptoms of something bigger. That's what I want you to get here. So whether it be that the person has a religious delusion, a delusion of grandeur, a delusion of persecution, whatever it may be, the point is that there is the presence of that delusion or hallucination, if you will, okay? Or that split from the their normal perceived reality. I hate using the word normal though there. So what was I going to say here? Andrea's delusions, they also were not random. They attack the center of her identity, which we often see with delusions of this type. So your delusions aren't usually like, what a good mom you are. Do you know what I mean? Like they usually attack your very character, your identity. So motherhood and morality were two of the things that were most important to her, which is, in my opinion, why they were the things that were that she created a false belief around. So she did not merely believe something factually strange. She believed that she had become the mechanism by which her children would be eternally destroyed. Once that premise was accepted as real for her, the rest of the behavior followed a terrible internal logic. So it made sense to her. So once that occurs, everything else is history. So that's why telling as psychotic person, but you loved your children, that don't solve the puzzle. The delusion can recruit that love. All right, let me say that again. Saying, but you loved your child, it doesn't make sense. That doesn't solve the puzzle. The delusion in this sense can recruit that love. It can convert protection into destruction. The emotional system is still present. The reality on which it's operating has been corrupted. Psychosis does not always erase love. It sometimes weaponizes love against reality. Okay? So psychosis does not always erase love. It sometimes weaponizes it against reality. Andrea reportedly understood that society prohibited the act. The deeper question was whether psychosis had reversed its moral meaning in her mind. That same distinction sits underneath the Clancy case, in my opinion. Okay? So here I'm going to show you where the cases align. I know that I took that off, but I'm going to go back to that real quick. Oh, wait, no, that was the next one. Hold on. All right, let's do, yeah, we'll go to this one. All right, so I'm going to go to that side. So here we go. So first we have, I want to align these cases. So first there's a baseline. Both women were nurses. I thought that was interesting. Both were described as loving, competent, and deeply involved mothers before the severe deterioration. Professional competence does not prevent psychosis, okay? A psychiatric disorder does not check your degree and decide to leave you alone. It's not like, oh, you're a pediatric nurse, I'm going to skip you. That's not how it works, you guys, right? The second thing we need to look at is that postpartum context. Andrea's youngest was 6 months old. Lindsay's youngest was 8 months old. The age of the baby does not prove, in my opinion, the diagnosis. It makes the timeline the central issue. So when did the symptoms begin? Did they form one, continuous episode? Did the illness fluctuate, relapse, or progress? The third thing I would look at is sleep. Severe sleep disturbances appears in both of these histories. In a bipolar spectrum illness, reduced need for sleep can be a sign of mania. So inability to sleep can also intensify someone's anxiety, their cognitive instability, and psychosis. In postpartum psychiatry, repeated profound insomnia is an alarm, right? It's literally a red flag for, asking somebody about their emotional state, even when they're not in a state of psychosis or mental illness. So just a new mom after a few months is tired, or a new dad, they're just tired. So sleep is so important. It really is. Oh my God, thank you so much, Ivy. Ivy just sent me 30 jewels. I got a flower. Thank you, Queen. So when your insomnia is joined by rapid mood change, suicidality, confusion, or psychotic symptoms, this is more than just like the baby blues. Oh, my girlfriend Truth is here. Hey, Truth. Some thought needs to be put on the man. Okay, so this is the thing. So I see what you're saying. So some fault needs to be put on the men for keeping these women knocked up. This is the thing, True. So I actually, with Rusty, if you guys look at that case and, he kept like downsizing their living quarters. Like he thought that he was doing good. I think one of the things that we see here is just not knowing. Sometimes when we don't know what to do, we don't know what to, you don't know what you don't know, which is part of the reason that I think that these conversations we're having are so important, because this is how, somebody that doesn't know anything about this stuff asks their pregnant friend or their friend that just had a baby 4 weeks ago how they're doing, because they now realize that, just because they were on the phone with their friend who sounded like they're happier than ever, that doesn't mean that when they hang up, they're not crying themselves to sleep. So I think you bring up a great point, though, because with Rusty, I know that she had experienced postpartum depression multiple times. And there were many times in that case where, and this is just my opinion, where I was like, oh my gosh, like Rusty, like wake up. Now, as far as what that responsibility or accountability looks like, I'm not sure. I think losing your children, I can't imagine, you can't move on from that. But point taken. Let me see. Why isn't what showing up at the top? I guess someone else knows what you're talking about. So you guys hang in there. If you're joining us, welcome. And I'm going to give away 5 free Mind Behind True Crime memberships in a couple of minutes. I'm almost done. Harlot says Patrick only knew what he had seen in the past, that Lindsay was a devoted mother who loved her children, even thought she told him she was having thoughts. She probably thought it was a fear. This is the thing, you guys. So there's a lot of people that have intrusive thoughts, and she was trying to get help. Like her mom came out, he was working from home. There was many things. I think he even said on the stand that he didn't know what psychosis was until after this happened. Like, that's not helpful, right? But why would he know about what psychosis is if there was never a reason? So, for him to know about it, which is probably the reason that we all need to be talking about it more often. And we all know a lot of us bitches over here are well out of that part of life. Shut up. Truth. I know. Oh, Joanne, thank you. Oh my God, you guys. Thank you, a wise woman. Thank you, Joanne. Yay, I got a happy poop. That always makes me laugh. I don't know why. Thank you guys. I appreciate you. I really do. So real quick, getting back to this, I listed 3 things that are lining so far. So we had their baseline, postpartum context, and then sleep. The 4th thing is suicidality. So Andrea had serious attempts before the death. Lindsay reportedly disclosed suicidal thinking and attempted to die immediately afterwards. In both cases, the illness narrative was not limited to anger at the children. So the mother's own identity and survival were collapsing. Holy shit. Oh my God. Okay, Heidi. Thank you, Heidi. Thank girl power. Wow, 300 joules. I don't think I've ever gone 300 joules. Thank you, Heidi. That was so very generous of all of you. I appreciate you. Wow. Okay, so Casey, I think Casey is feeling what I was feeling. So Casey said that she felt more that way with Andrea's husband as well, not as much with Patrick. See, Case didn't, I felt like, I don't know if it's because Rusty was out of the house more with work and Patrick worked from home. I don't know what it is yet, but I feel what you're feeling. I do. Okay, so real quick, going back to that 4th thing, the suicidality. So in both cases, I just said that the narrative, it wasn't just anger towards the children. It was also the identity and survival of the women themselves that's collapsing. The 5th thing that I saw was distorted protection. So Andrea believed she was saving the children from damnation. Lindsay's defense says that the voices link killing the children to her own suicide and not to leaving them behind. So the content here is different. The structure may be similar, which would be a false reality turns an unthinkable act into an urgent necessity. Sorry, let me say that again. Although the content is different, just like I was saying in the other example, you may have symptoms of something bigger. So the content here might be different, but the structure, the main thing, could be very similar, which is a false reality that turns an unthinkable act into an urgent necessity. The sixth thing is organized conduct. Andrea waited until Rusty left. Lindsay allegedly created or used Patrick's absence. Psychosis doesn't always produce chaos. A person may execute a plan whose premise is delusional. Okay, those two things can be true at the same time. Think of it this way. A person can use an accurate map to drive toward a destination that does not exist. The navigation skills are intact. The governing belief is false. Does that make sense? So in case you're like, wait, what did you just say? So think of it this way. A person can use a map. We can use a map to drive toward a destination that doesn't exist. However, the navigation skills are still intact. So you can still drive. You still go in that direction. You still know which way north was. You still know, you know what I mean, what the speed limit is. You still know how to stop the car, how to shift, even if your governing belief is false. There's no place that exists with that, destination. So organization tells you how the act was carried out. It doesn't automatically tell you why reality looked the way it did to the person who was carrying it out. Wow, Ivy, look at you. Thank you, Ivy. That is so very generous of you. Ivy sent me 30 jewels of flour. Thank you. The next thing I have real quick is the seventh thing is treatment contact. Neither woman simply refused help. Andrea had a psychiatrist, hospitalization, medication, documented warnings. Lindsay reportedly moved through outpatient care, emergency care, perinatal treatment, multiple prescriptions, and inpatient care. Treatment contact does not prove malpractice. It proves that serious symptoms were visible enough to repeatedly enter that system. Right? The eighth thing I noticed real quick was a change from baseline. So going back to number one, my number one thing was their baseline. Number 8 at the end is a change from baseline. Rusty and Patrick are not forensic psychiatrists. However, they are longitudinal witnesses. They knew the women before the deterioration. Both described a radical change, and both ultimately located the cause of the illness rather than on their character. So they both said that this catastrophic event had to have come from that, from the mental illness, and not out of a bad person. That these women were, by all means, loving, dedicated women. Lindsay, the Clancys, they named their first daughter Cora after the first baby that she helped deliver as a delivery nurse. I thought that was beautiful, right? So it shows empathy and stuff like that. It's not the same thing that we see when we sometimes will see filicide. So we have to keep that in mind. There's another parallel real quick that deserves more attention for me, and that's motive. So prosecutors often look for a recognizable external motive, even if they don't need one. The jury often wants to hear a motive. So they want to know, was there money, revenge, a new relationship, freedom, anger, concealment of abuse, like something. In both the Yates case and the Clancy case, the defense says the motive was generated inside the illness. So Andrea's was salvation. Lindsay's alleged motive was a command tied to side and not leaving the children behind. The psychotic motive is still a motive, you guys. Saying an act was psychotic doesn't mean that it was purposeless. It means that the purpose may be built on a false belief, which is the definition of a delusion. That's why the phrase, she had no motive, is imprecise. The defense's position is that she had no conventional motive, that the apparent motive was pathology. So it was pathological. Oh my God, a wise woman. Wow. Thank you. You guys are so nice to me. Thank you, guys. Risk assessment is another overlap. No clinician is expected to predict every rare catastrophe with supernatural accuracy. The question is whether warning signs were recognized and integrated. Severe insomnia, suicidality, intrusive harm thoughts, possible activation, psychotic symptoms, recent hospitalization, and impaired judgment become more concerning when they converge. So on their own, they may, hold so much weight. When combined together, when they converge, that is where impaired judgment becomes more concerning, in my opinion. So fragmented care can also make each professional see one piece. So one prescriber sees the insomnia, another one you might see for depression, an emergency department sees suicidality, a perinatal program sees anxiety, a hospital sees temporary stabilization. If nobody owns the longitudinal picture, a patient can be surrounded by a team and still have no coordinated risk information, right? So systems contact does not automatically mean negligence. Tragedy creates hindsight pressure, and we talked about hindsight pressure in other cases, to believe that someone should have known exactly what would happen. The fair question is whether the risk was reasonably recognizable with the information available at that time, what precautions were communicated, and whether the follow-up matched the severity of the presentation. So real quick, now let's just look at the differences. What do I have here that I could show you? Okay, so let's look at differences, because comparison hides the differences is just propaganda, in my opinion. So Andrea's psychosis was clearer and more extensively documented before the deaths. She had prior psychotic illness, repeated suicide attempts, hospitalization, antipsychotic responses, severe functional collapse, and a developed delusional system. Lindsay's alleged command voice is central, but it is contested and more dependent on retrospective reporting. Andrea had a recurrent postpartum history. That also strengthens the relationship between childbirth and illness. In Lindsay's case, the defense is building a first recognized bipolar spectrum course. So that is possible, but it demands a tighter timeline and stronger corroboration. The post-offense behavior dividers, Andrea called police and confessed. Lindsay attempts suicide and suffered catastrophic injury. The act of suicide unity is especially important in Lindsay's case, but it does not erase the prosecution's evidence of opportunity and planning. The psychotic content differs, in my opinion. So Andrea's beliefs were religious, moral, and developed over time. Lindsay's defense describes an auditory command tied to psychosis, uses the person's available fears, beliefs, culture, guilt, and identity as raw material. It does not have to sound the same to every person. So same thing with any of the disorders. It's not going to look the same in every person. The main symptomology will, but there are there's a lot of things that are going to look different. And the legal posture here is also different. Andrea's case had 2 trials, an appellate decision, extensive psychiatric evidence, and a final insanity verdict. Lindsay's trial is happening right now. We do not yet have the full expert battle or verdict yet. So my bottom line is this. The Clancy pattern is strongly compatible, in my opinion, with postpartum triggered bipolar psychosis, but the pre-offense psychosis was more clearly established for me in Andrea Yates' case. Saying that makes the argument stronger, not weaker, because it shows that we're comparing evidence, not choosing a team. right? So I do see where, things differ here too. Now, let's just move real quick um, to my, hold on, to the men, and then I can wrap this up. So this is the emotional parallel, but I think that we need to say something about it. So Patrick Clancy asked the public to forgive Lindsay in the past. I don't know if you guys remember. I was going to read his plea, but I've been on here for a minute, and maybe we could do that another time. But if you haven't read it, it is trigger warning. It's like sad. But he ultimately tells us about the 3 children. It's so sad, the letter. If you guys haven't read it, or I think you could, even if you're not a big reader, you can also type it into YouTube, and there's channels that have read it out loud as well. Hey, Mary and Bella, welcome in, you guys. So Patrick definitely asked for the public to forgive Lindsay. Just remember, though, forgiveness doesn't mean that what the person did is okay, right? So he's not saying to tell Lindsay what she did is okay. He's saying, I hope that people can find forgiveness in their hearts for her, because he knows that she was not coming from a place of negligence. Okay. Thank you so much, Joanne. That is so very, very thoughtful. Thank you. So Andrea acted because she was mentally ill. I'm sorry. Rusty Yates recently said that once he understood that Andrea acted because she was mentally ill, he did not blame her. So here we have 2 fathers, 25 years apart, who made the same distinction, that the woman they knew was not identical to the act committed during their catastrophic illness. That's not diagnostic proof, of course. Forgiveness is also not a brain scan. Patrick and Rusty do not decide the legal standard, but they are the people who observe the largest change over time. And both of them rejected the idea that the acts represented the woman's stable personalities. I think that's so important here, you guys. And I mean, who wouldn't want to get justice for these children more than the fathers, right? So for both of these men to have forgiven these women and acknowledged that this is not, that they, were not in that moment. And, I would hate for somebody out there to be like, oh, but we have to make sure that there's not women out there that just act like this, because I don't think that this occurs as much as, I don't think that somebody's just going to go out there tomorrow and take their family out and be like, oh, I must have postpartum. When was your kid born? 18 years ago? No, I don't think that, right? But I do think that when it happens, that if we can see some of the warning signs, that maybe we can help uncover some of these things before they occur. Hey, a wise woman, thank you. That was so very kind of you. And Bella, Maren Bella, thank you. That was so very kind of you guys. You have no idea how much that means to me. I do work very hard on these. Oh my gosh, and Harlot too. Thank you, Harlot. I got a happy poop. You guys, thank you so much. Wow, thank you, you guys. I appreciate you. That was so very generous. Thank you. So forgiveness, you guys, is the evidence of how the survivor understands a tragedy. It's not evidence that substitutes for psychiatry or the law. So forgiveness also does not cancel grief. Patrick's statement was centered on Cora, Dawson, and Kellen as individual children. Rusty has said the loss remains real. Forgiveness can mean refusing to let hatred become the final relationship to the person or the past, okay? It can coexist with consequence. So you can forgive and still want consequences. It can also coexist with commitment to a hospital. It can coexist with anger, accountability, and questions about treatment failures. Forgiveness and exoneration are not synonyms. We should also resist the hindsight prosecution of let me repeat that because we did just talk about this. Oh my God, you two bad actors, shut up. You spent your last jewels on me? What? Oh my God, A. Higgins, I'm so jealous. A. Higgins has been summoned to play Mario Kart. Yes, go have fun. Thank you so much, you two bad actors. And then thank you again, Miss Harlot. You guys are so kind. Thank you so much. Excuse me. What I was saying was forgiveness can coexist with consequence. It can coexist with commitment to the hospital and to all the other things. We should also resist the hindsight prosecution of the husbands. Rusty has been criticized for family decisions, religious context, medical warnings, and leaving Andrea alone. Patrick knew Lindsay was struggling and had disclosed disturbing thoughts, but he testified that professionals had not told him that she could never be left alone with the children. Those facts should be examined. They don't make, I think they make a difference. So I think that, because Patrick does say that, and I'm sure Rusty too, if somebody would have told them that, they're in a dangerous state where they're having psychosis, you probably shouldn't leave your children. I don't see a world in where either one of these men would have been like, okay, I'm out. You know what I mean? Like, good luck. I don't see that happening. So I do think that hindsight bias occurs. It's easy for me to say like, oh, I wanted to yell at Rusty through the thing, like all this stuff. But if he never experienced somebody that he loved with mental illness, and maybe he's not into psychology, like, there's no reason, especially 25 years ago, that he should have definitely known type thing, even with all those signs that I just pointed to. So I do want to make sure that I'm not, prosecuting the men out there either, even though it's like me and Truth were saying, I mean, it's easy to want to hold someone accountable for this, or to at least be like, didn't you guys like, and the other thing is too, you guys, let's assume, and I don't know this to be true, but let's assume that the talk that Lindsay had with Patrick, like she told him everything. And I think she did tell, like he admits that she did say that she had thoughts of this, that, there's so many people it had, and I don't know this to be true, but like, let's say he confided in a friend and was like, oh my God, and da da. The friend might have been like, oh, when so-and-so was pregnant and she said that. So like because it's more common than uncommon. The thing that's uncommon is the command and the follow through. A wise woman. Thank you, Queen. That is so very generous. Happy poop. I'm so excited. There's nothing like a happy poop. So thank you. That's so funny. So I do want to be careful with that. Survivors replay ordinary choices, ongoing work, picking up dinner, trusted discharge instructions as though the ordinary choice secretly contained the power to stop the tragedy. That is one of the cruelties of a traumatic grief. And again, let me tell you what I kind of just skipped a sentence in between because I got so excited about the happy poop. So let me back up for 1 second. When talking about hindsight prosecution of the husbands, Patrick knew, this is where I ended. Patrick knew Lindsay was struggling and had disclosed disturbed thoughts, but he testified that the professionals had not told him that she couldn't be left alone with the children. So survivors replay these ordinary choices. So he might have thought in his head, why did I go pick up dinner? Why didn't I take the kids with me? Why didn't I get an Uber? Why didn't I call Uber Eats? We think of all these things like, or what if? Or I shoulda, I coulda, I woulda, I didn't. Do you know what I mean? All of those things are such a cruel cognitive process that so many of us put ourselves through when suffering from grief, and it winds up traumatizing us that much more. So I do think that that is something that anybody could look at, whether you're going through this particular grief or, something very different. Grief is grief in many instances. You guys, I hope you guys know this, but do you guys think that forgiveness can coexist with accountability? So can forgiveness coexist with accountability? J-Lo, thank you, J-Lo. You guys, thank you so much. It really does feel validating. So thank you. I appreciate you. It makes me feel like you, I don't know, but I'm about to give away 5 free memberships. Stay in there. I only have like, I'm like right towards the end. So let me get back to this so I can clear this all up and then go give out some free memberships. Here we go. So both men here, you guys, they're probably, I'm sure their thoughts that I shoulda, coulda, woulda, and that's terrible. And everybody needs to support them, especially in those tragic moments. Both men may also be dealing with a moral injury. So this would be the collapse of assumptions that made ordinary life feel safe. So things like, I know my spouse, my home is safe, I can protect my children, right? The doctors will tell me if danger is imminent. A tragedy like this destroys all those assumptions at once. So now going forward, there's tragedy from this event, but there's consequences that live on, not just for not just for that one person in that one instance, I should say. So not just in that one instance, but in many instances. We know that both men went on to remarry. I do think that Rusty wound up getting divorced from what I have been told, but also in the interview that I watched with him, he still talks to Andrea. And same thing with Patrick as well. He winds up getting remarried. And the happy poo poo poo. But he winds up getting remarried as well. And I believe he's happily married. I think he's married to a doctor. I don't know where that came in today. I was like, oh, like a medical doctor. I'm like, that's cool. I don't know though where I heard that on one of the shows. But anyway, so both men may be dealing with this moral injury that, they have a violation of expectations of what they thought that their futures would look like. Casey, thank you, Casey. I appreciate you, Casey. You do a lot for me. Thank you so much. I want to ask though, so when this is destroyed all at once for these men, right? When survivors say illness changed the person, that may be what we call meaning making, or what I would call meaning making in my line of work. So, but it may also be the explanation that best fits years of observation. So for me, we should neither, put all of our stock in their conclusions or dismiss them as denial. Their perspective is emotionally shaped and, in my opinion, clinically relevant at the same time. Like, I think we're going to see that their perspectives are relevant clinically and legally, is what I'm saying. So both in the psychology realm and in the legal realm. My opinion is that I think their perspectives matter and might play into whatever the decision is going to be that the jurors make, right? So accountability, when it comes to accountability and forgiveness, I do believe that they can coexist. So accountability asks what response is appropriate for the act and the person's capacities. Forgiveness asks whether hatred will control the survivor's remaining life. They're related questions, but they're not the same. So let's real quick before we end, let me see what you guys think. So let me know, do you guys see, before I do my closing statement here, do you guys see the similarities in the two cases? I guess put a 1 in chat if you see similarity, if you see more similarities than you do differences, and put a 2 if you think they're just totally different. And again, we're talking about the two cases, the Clancy case and the Yates case. So put a 1 if you see the similarities and a 2 if you do not. And if you're undecided yet, I guess you could put a 3. I don't know. But here's my conclusion, and I'm going to try to state it nice and clean. So Andrea Yates was not proof that Lindsay Clancy lacks criminal responsibility, in my opinion. However, she is proof that a loving maternal identity, organized conduct, awareness that others would intervene, and catastrophic psychosis can all coexist. Lindsay Clancy's weakest point, in my opinion, is going to be the timing. Her strongest points are the reported longitudinal deterioration, severe sleep disruption, treatment escalation, suicidality, alleged commanding voice, and immediate act suicide sequence, right? So she does the act and tries to take herself out. The case will rise or fall, in my opinion, on contemporaneous records and expert analysis, not on how much the outcome discussed, right? So Andrea Yates destroyed the lazy. Clancy Evans still has to prove their case. We can center Cora Dawson, Kaylin, Noah, John, Paul, Luke, and Mary. We need to keep them at the center here because they are the victims. We can also demand a better maternal psychiatric care for the women that have babies, right? For all, I said the women that have babies as opposed to, right? But literally, I think we need to have better maternal psychiatric care. We can debate responsibility. We can hold empathy and accountability in the same hand without turning mental illness into either a magic excuse or a synonym for evil. And that's my opinion. So I want to go back to the words that, well, I don't know that I said really in the beginning. I guess what I'm saying is here, you guys, let me know what you think out there. It is my opinion, if I was a juror here, that not only would I do not guilty by reason of insanity, but I'm almost annoyed if I lived there, that of all the time, the money, the re-traumatization, like, I just feel like there's so much there that's unnecessary, in my opinion. But I shouldn't really speak on the legal part, so maybe that's where I'm going to end my thought there. That is just my thought as a human. I'm sure you guys have different opinion, though, and you could tell me why, and I always can change my mind. That's just based off of what I'm thinking in the moment. But I'm curious to see how you guys stand here. I don't know if, I don't know how you guys stand. And I only got like Casey or Lucy. Thank you, Lucy. Lucy said 1. That you see them very much similar. And Lucy, your opinion actually is like the opinion of 1,000 to me, because you're coming from a place of experience, right? So I feel like your word holds, just like anybody else that comes from a place of experience in whatever case we cover. I feel like that has to hold a little bit more water as well for me. So, there's a distinction there, if you will. So I would also, let me see if there's anything else here that I didn't say. Okay, I have here, make sure I have like my little notes at the end. Oh, let me see too. Is there anything here in the slides that I didn't show? Oh, forgiveness is not so this was the forgiveness piece that I just talked about. That's the slide that goes with it, man. But let me remember, we're not diagnosing on YouTube. We didn't really have to, because there are clinical diagnoses for both of the women already from what I've been able to find. Also, remember, postpartum psychosis is not in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual. So it's not a standalone diagnosis. So clinicians diagnose the underlying mood or psychotic disorder and may use peripartum onset specifier, which is when the timing criteria are met. So I think that that's important. So again, thank you so much, wise woman. That was so generous of you. So when we have a clinician or someone that's going to come up and talk to us, we have to remember that we're not listening for postpartum psychosis. We're probably going to hear something like, and again, this is just speculation, we're probably going to hear something more like bipolar 1 with psychotic features, for example, when we do hear that. And I'm curious, and I look forward to that. So also remember, some people might say about the 8 months means that it can't be postpartum. I want you to keep in mind, though, that it makes a sudden onset claim weak, but it doesn't rule out that postpartum triggered illness began earlier but continued to get worse, right? And the records, I think we're going to see, will either establish that or it won't. So I guess we're going to see there. Oh, the pulling out of the clothing, a wise woman. I couldn't believe that either. This prosecutor is not, I do not love this prosecutor. I don't hate anyone, so I don't want to use that word, but I less than like this prosecutor. Like, I also I didn't see the point of that. And the photos of her wounds, they don't usually stream that stuff. I know what you mean. You're right, Luce. I never thought of that. We usually don't see that stuff, you guys. And it was like cut her wrists in the one part. Oh, you think the prosecution is ridiculous, YouTube? Okay, we're on the same page there. I'm like, I can't believe it. And the fact that, I don't know, I don't want to have anybody come out for me for being sexist, but I'm like, this woman prosecutor, like, I feel like, I don't know, I shouldn't have just said that out loud, because it doesn't matter if she's a woman or a man. Maybe because I feel like that maternal type thing, like, I don't know, I feel like she is 100% convinced that she's guilty of a crime. I don't know why. I mean, I guess you should, if you're going to prosecute it, you should believe that the person did it to prosecute it. She's very unpleasant. There goes the word I'm looking for. Unpleasant. I like that one, Lucy. Thank you. Thank you. Harlot says there's no need for her to pull the kid's clothing out. She was just hoping to upset the jury enough to convict her regardless of whether or not she's legally responsible for what she did. I totally agree with that. Yeah. Oh, well, wise woman, absolutely. A wise woman says a different method of communicating this act would have given the children's clothing more evidentiary value, but in this case, it made them look bad. I agree. Casey says, I didn't like them putting up the diagram and making Patrick show where the bodies were. Right? I didn't even think of that case. Yeah. What was the point of that? Couldn't they have asked one of the first responders? I did notice they did have him leave before the 911 call, right? Which I can't believe we weren't able to hear. I'm like, that is very rare that they would allow us to be in there and all not hear that. She seems to be very emotionally involved. I do agree with that. Oh, Harlot. You are so smart. Harlot, two things. One, you're right. There's no evidentiary value to the clothes because they were strangled. But the thing that I was like, oh my God, that you're so smart. Maybe they have a female prosecuting this as a strategy. Interesting. That could so very much be it. Wow, that's interesting. I agree. So, wow, that's interesting. The other note I made here, you guys, is to remember the whole she acted normal thing, that a period of apparent normal behavior is evidence of functioning. It doesn't automatically establish intact reality testing throughout the day. So you can have, just because somebody has distorted thinking at certain parts of the day doesn't mean that it's like that the entire time. Also, she knew Patrick would have stopped her. I wrote that supports awareness of external consequences. So the legal question is whether she meaningfully appreciated wrongfulness and can conform her conduct, meaning that she would have the ability to stop herself, which she obviously didn't in this case. Also, wait, I can skip that part. I just want to make sure that I worked so hard on this live that I just want to make sure I got everything. Oh, also, I wanted to tell you that I have all of my resources, but some of the ones off the top of my list here, I use the DSM-5 is the biggest one here. I also use the APA postpartum mental health release. And I have the links to all these too. I should share them in Discord or something in case anybody wants to look. I use the Associated Press on information about today in the case. I used Massachusetts jury instructions. the Texas Penal Code, Yates versus State, Patrick Clancy's public statement, Rusty Yates' interview. That just happened in January of 2026. And then, yeah, that's pretty much it. I think I went over everything. I got it all out. I'm so excited. So that is my live on that. And now, before I forget, we're going to go over to my YouTube page and I'm going to gift. Oh, I did a great job. Thank you. Harlot. Harlot gave me a happy poop. Oh, I'm so excited. Thank you, Harlot. You guys are so nice to me. Thank you. Oh, a wise woman. A wise woman. Thank you so much. A wise woman gave me a gold coin. Thank you, you guys. You guys are amazing. Thank you. And let's see who's going to get this. All right, we're going over to here. Oh, you guys, please hit like. Only 4 likes. Are you serious? Please go over and hit like real quick. Okay, let's see. All right, here we go. Da-na-na-na-na. Let's see who gets it. Okay, we have Lucy. Lucy J received a gift, and Mac and Manda McGee and No Nonsense Mom and LV10326. Yes, you think you have hypes left you can use. That would be great. Yes, Lucy, I'm so excited. You deserved it, especially because today you shared so much with us. That was so, brave and kind, so thank you. So you guys, welcome to the Minds Behind True Crime with Dr. Vona, where we put the fun in dysfunctional. Welcome. Thank you for being here. Thank you to my mods. Thank you to everyone that joined us tonight. And with that, you guys, I think I'm going to go. Also, make sure everybody keeps in mind that today is the 4-year anniversary of Dom and Davion's passing, right? So let's all keep them in our prayers. Also, make sure you go hit like, and if you have any of your hypes left, if you wait about 10 minutes or so, it'll let you hype the things. That would be so kind. Oh, guess what? For those of you watching, Harlot told me that our hypes got, what was it? 2 different times. We were in like the top 5% of hypes. So that's amazing. Thank you for that to all of you. So thank you guys. And this is the thing. So my original plan was tonight I was supposed to go live on the Mackenzie Shirley stuff because it's the anniversary. And then I had to do this. So I decided to go live earlier today so I could do this earlier today and then come back later tonight. Now I don't know what's going to happen. So I'm going to go eat something. If I'm just like hanging out doing nothing and I'm just going to watch TV or something, I'll come live instead. So look out for that. And again, it would probably be on, not probably, if I do come back, it would be on something Shirley related because it's the anniversary today. But I'm going to go eat dinner because I'm hungry. And I will talk to you guys later. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you, Mom. Thank you, members. Please like, subscribe, share, hype, do all the things. Actually, Case, if you're still listening, maybe we strategically hold on to your hype for either if I go live again later or for one of the lives that I've already done, because I'm thinking about it strategically. And I don't know that using it on this one is the best strategic move. But you do whatever you want. If you're going to give me your hype, I don't give a shit what you put it on. I appreciate you. Thank you, guys. And thank you to all the people with your jewels today. I do appreciate you. You have no idea. I love that this shows me all the jewels. And I will say, Miss Heidi, your jewels is a different color, which makes me think that over a certain amount. Oh, I wonder if 300 jewels is like the equivalent of a certain super chat. Like $5.99 super chatters. I'm gonna have to go look. But thank you guys. I got a lot of jewels today. Ivy, I love that StreamYard lets me see them. I'm gonna have to write an email to Streamlabs to tell them to catch up. But Ivy, Heidi, a wise woman, Joanne, Ivy, a wise woman, Joanne, Heidi, Ivy, a wise woman, Joanne, a wise woman, Marambella, harlot, you two bad actors, harlot, a wise woman, JLo, Casey, a wise woman, harlot, a wise woman, and Casey. And then I gifted the memberships. So thank you guys. That really made all of the shitty 2 lives earlier a lot better. That sucked. I was like so into it and they just cut me off more than once. But anyway, thank you guys for being here and making this possible. Love you guys. I'll see you later. Maybe I'll see you later. I'm going to sing. And then I'll come down and join, you know what I mean? So we'll see. So make sure you put your notifications on. Bye, guys.